The most primitive altar in ancient times was the threshold or doorway into the home. You can correlate all this to the Exodus story. And so when someone was going to have a new place of dwelling, it's like we would dedicate our new house to the Lord, that kind of thing. Before they would establish their residency, they would first dedicate the residence to their family god or a deity. And then they would invite the deity into their home to be their protector and their provider for the family. And the way they did this is by making a blood covenant sacrifice at the threshold or doorway into their home. Like the Jewish people put a mezuzah on the doorway. It's the same thing. Or when we have a new building we dedicate, or a new house we dedicate, we all join hands and say a prayer, asking God's protection and favor and blessing. But in ancient times, that was their altar where they made the sacrifice to their God that they worshiped. And the threshold was the most primitive altar of ancient peoples. In some traditions, the threshold, the guests would prostrate themselves at the threshold before crossing it. It was a sacred place, you see. Others would kiss the threshold before stepping over it. It was considered bad luck if somebody stumbled over the threshold or tripped or somehow desecrated it or spilled anything on it. To honor or dishonor the threshold was to honor or dishonor the protecting deity of the home. Everybody with me so far? Great. Because the threshold was the altar of worship, ancient people placed images of their gods underneath the threshold as a way of sort of guarding the entrance. You see, again, it's like the mezuzah. God is the guardian of the house. And the doorway, being the primitive altar of the household, people would write various inscriptions on the doorway, or they would attach various symbols. You see people do this even in modern times. They'll have the Lions Club sign up there, or the Rotary Club, or my kid goes to certain such high school. It's the same kind of thing, identifying. But in Bible times, they identified it with the gods that they worship. They would strike the doorpost with the blood of the sacrifice. It was considered an honor to be buried underneath the threshold, because to be buried there, you're going to be buried close to the household deity, you see. Now, we sort of have a hard time putting Uncle so-and-so under the front porch when he dies, But that was the way they did it. Now, when people got more property, this same concept extended beyond the entranceway into their door to all the acquired property that they had. And all the immediate borders of their property was extended to the property line. The boundaries and borders of the property was the threshold of the land. So we're extending now from the doorway to the boundaries of the 20 acres they bought or whatever. It was the gateway or entrance to their property, see. The private dwelling was the domain of their God, but now this domain is extended, you see, to all of their property. And so the people were in covenant with their God, who was now the ruling deity over all of the territory held by the family. The God, the deity that they worship, was the protector and the provider of all the territory in his domain, because, again, the land was considered sacred. Not only belonged to the people, but to the deity that they worshipped. The landowners dedicated the land to their god or gods by building altars and making sacrifices at the borders of their property line. And they would set up landmarks in the form of monuments of stone. You see this all through the Bible. Or they would plant a grove of trees on the boundaries of the property line, marking this off and dedicating it to their gods. When the people went in and out of the territory, they would make sacrifices at the borders where these altars were or where these groves of trees were. And the recrossing the threshold back into their territory, see, meant coming back into the domain of their God or their deity. Every now and then you'll see one of these old movies, you know, and you'll see somebody do that in one of the movies. This is what they're doing. Because the boundaries and borders were a place of worship, they were considered sacred. To move a landmark was not only stealing property from your neighbor, but more importantly, it was diminishing the territorial domain of their God. You with me?